Imagine a company watching its quarterly sales drop. They have mountains of data telling them exactly what is happening. But as this monolithic chart shows, when the metrics start cracking under pressure, quantitative data hits a wall. It cannot explain why customers are leaving. The obvious reaction is to put consumers in a room and simply ask them to explain their behavior. But human beings are notoriously bad at articulating their own subconscious motivations. If you ask a direct question about a complex choice, you usually get a superficial, rationalized answer. To get past the surface, you need a qualitative researcher. These professionals operate under what the industry calls a dual role. They have to act as rigorous social scientists, protecting the integrity of the methodology, while simultaneously serving as pragmatic consultants, solving a direct commercial problem. This begins with a collaborative negotiation. The client brings the business context, the internal sales data, the competitive landscape, and the immediate panic. The researcher brings the methodological boundaries, defining what can and cannot be reliably measured using human subjects. They work together to isolate a specific, researchable objective. The team identifies exactly which slice of consumer perception needs to be explored to inform a specific corporate decision. The entire project hinges on this moment. The final insight will only be useful if the team identifies the exact action or decision the research is meant to inform, long before any actual interviews take place. Once that core objective is locked in, the next major design question is how to actually gather the data. The researcher has to determine the theoretically optimal method for extracting the required information. This diagram represents focus group information flow. Ideas bounce and collide, generating insights a person alone might never reach. But for sensitive issues, the group dynamic fades. Instead, an individual depth interview establishes intense, uncontaminated one-on-one extraction. External business realities can also force this choice. If a company needs to understand the mindset of highly specialized surgeons scattered across the country, or interview intense corporate competitors who refuse to sit in the same room, individual depth interviews become the only viable option. Whether it is a lively group or a quiet one-on-one conversation, the chosen format dictates the psychological environment of the respondent. The setting establishes how safe they feel, how defensive they act, and what kind of truths they are willing to reveal. The methodology functions as a calculated container, engineered to extract a very specific type of human truth. Qualitative research abandons large, random samples for purposive sampling. This statistical grid dissolves into an asymmetrical cluster of deliberate, targeted selection. Researchers isolate information-rich subjects based on specific behavioral habits, like obsessive heavy users, while actively filtering out those who philosophically reject the product. Once the right people are selected, the researcher develops stimulus materials. By showing early prototypes, rough advertising sketches, or visual mood boards, they give the respondents a tangible target to react to. This pushes the conversation past conscious, rehearsed answers. Guiding this interaction requires a topic guide. This document outlines key themes and broad issues for exploration, allowing the moderator to pivot and probe based on the unpredictable flow of group dynamics. When the specific people recruited are perfectly calibrated with the right stimulus materials and discussion guides, the researcher successfully bypasses surface-level bias and reaches the underlying motivations. The initial briefing and collaborative negotiation result in a technical blueprint. The researcher creates a detailed plan for the methodologies, the respondent profiles, and the tools required for the task. But a theoretical blueprint rarely survives contact with reality without generating friction. The mathematically perfect research design inevitably collides with hard, uncompromising business constraints. A company might need a comprehensive national study to make a flawless decision, but they only have 3 weeks and a tight budget before a product launch. That pressure forces calculated compromises, scaling down sample sizes or settling for localized focus groups instead of nationwide interviews. There are also informal constraints, internal corporate politics, dominant executive personalities, and pre-existing beliefs about the market dictate what kind of data the organization is actually willing to absorb. The research design has to navigate those internal biases to ensure the final report is taken seriously. The true skill of the qualitative researcher lies in managing this exact tension. They have to maintain enough scientific validity to ensure the findings are accurate, while bending to business constraints enough to ensure the project actually gets funded and executed. The insights that save products or launch brands don't happen by accident in the interview room. The final depth of insight relies on the precise architecture built into the project long before the first respondent begins to speak.